Throughout the early 20th century, Howard Porter Lovecraft slaved away writing mostly for pulp magazines. He managed to craft nihilistic tales that question the space that humanity occupied in the universe and what came before. He also managed to combine it with racism so cringy that even hardcore racists admit it's a little over the top. Though he was never financially successful, many of what Lovecraft created has endured in pop culture. The Necronomicon, Arkham Asylum, The Reanimator, Tom Waits. But perhaps most enduring of all is the god Cthulhu.
Yes, Cthulhu, the sea-dwelling cosmic deity that resembles the hybrid of a cephalopod and a dragon. The followers of Cthulhu perform ritual sacrifices to summon him and guide mankind to its doom. Cthulhu has appeared not only in adaptations of Lovecraft stories, but also in games, both of the video and RPG variety, movies like the recently released Underwater, and animation form like Ghostbusters, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and of course South Park. He's even been featured in a teen romance novel.
In 2007, Boom Studios launched Fall of Cthulhu, an ongoing comic series that followed a group of characters who were trying to thwart the Elder God and its followers from bringing about the end of humanity. The series proved popular enough that it got its own sister series in the form of an anthology book called Cthulhu Tales. Today we're looking at the Cthulhu Tales first Omnibus collection, which is simply titled Delirium.
Mr. Binder, a former college professor, receives therapy from a rather bizarre-looking psychologist. He was a major in mathematics and aspired to be one of the next revolutionary minds. Instead, he wound up in obscurity, as every new concept he hit on turned out to be developed by someone else first. Then one day, his grad assistant tipped Binder off to a book called the Necronomicon. Perusing the pages allowed Binder to hit upon a new mathematical formula. He toiled away at it for days until his assistant came to check on him, except something was a little bit off. Binder ran out to the commons area, seeing nothing but Cthulhus around him. Binder was committed to a psych ward, but all tests were proven inconclusive. It got so bad that even Binder's own reflection showed the monster. If Binder believed the mathematics was building a bridge to this new dimension from the Necronomicon, maybe it wasn't meant to actually be built. It was a warning to not build it. With that, Binder burned his notes and his house down where the fire department eventually arrived. Seeing their human faces brought Binder finally to peace. From there we go on to the tale of a slacker who summoned Cthulhu at a lark, and now the monster just won't leave him alone, even pulling a say anything by holding a boombox on top of his head. The slacker's roommate, who had a similar experience with the one-night stand, gives him some advice. Call the parents.
Yeah, because of the anthology nature of this comic, some of these stories just aren't really deep at all. Case in point, the next story, which involves a beach walker coming across a massive pod of dead whales, and then Cthulhu. After that, we have a comedic title called Waiting for Cthulhu, about two guys who make several futile attempts to summon the Elder God, and then just wind up killing each other.
Next up, we see a couple in a failing marriage. The husband has thrown himself into constantly studying Cthulhu. However, the wife has dreams of her own, and they haunt her. The solution lays inside her, and possibly even the couple's child. She hears a voice calling from beyond the door. When she opens it, she finds the truth, and why she suddenly feels trapped. After that, it's on to another struggling couple. However, this one's in therapy, with the father being told to spend more time with their son, Sammy. Sammy gets a role in the school play, The King in Yellow, and the father plans to be there on opening night, but not for any of the rehearsals. As the weeks go by, the family begins to change, with Sammy always wearing his mask for the play, and Margaret, the wife, suddenly all being in the mood, promising that Sammy's beautiful words will wow the father. Finally, the night of the play arrives, and the parents are admitted, with the teacher shooting himself before the curtain raises. As the dialogue begins, all of the parents other than Paul, the father, begin whipping up a frenzy. Paul charges the stage, and the last thing he sees is what happened to Sammy's face.
The next story involves a witch hunter who goes around killing demons trying to locate a particular one named the Heredian. The reason being that the witch hunter and his wife Alice were having trouble conceiving a child, so Alice made a deal with the Heredian. Unfortunately, she wound up dying in childbirth, and now the witch hunter goes around killing demons to feed their organs to his daughter for sustenance.
Next up, a traveling salesman returns home to his wife. He's on the verge of a promotion which will finally take him off the road, and she'll be able to wear the fine jewelry he keeps getting her. She's had her suspicions for some time, even hiring a private investigator to track him, but he's alright, and even invites her out on what will be his last job. The couple soon head out on a yacht to meet the client, where she finds out the truth as a monstrous hag emerges from the sea. The husband explains that the hag finds rare jewelry, and in exchange, he has to sacrifice a human, and in this case, it will be his wife.
This concludes the troubled marriage portions of these comics.
At a local comic shop, Kyle picks up his weekly pull. Inside, he finds an issue of Cthulhu Tales, even though he never purchased it. However, the owner strongly recommends the book, even promising a money-back guarantee. Kyle is not impressed by the story and files it away in his storage room. That night, Kyle is rustled out of bed by a noise coming from his storage room. Somehow, his entire collection has been ravished by silverfish. Really, really big silverfish. Kyle storms down to the shop to get his money back, even though it's closed. He barges in and begins looking for the manager, only to find a giant anthropomorphic silverfish wearing the manager's flesh. Instinctively, Kyle grabs a gun from one of the Punisher films and opens fire. Later, after the authorities have arrived, Kyle is hauled away from the store, rambling about giant silverfish. The owner has denied all accusations, and he's explained that the gun was filled with blanks. He also has the perfect recommendation for anyone looking to get into comics.
Yeah, I don't really know that much about it. Anyway, the next title is Are You There, Cthulhu? It's Me, Margaret, which I can only assume is about the elder god going through his first menstrual cycle.
Maggie is a young girl in Catholic school who's in detention with it all being chalked up to puberty and the changes going within her body. She's even jealous of a popular girl named Eileen McCreevy. While she slits her wrists in detention, Maggie notices the Devlin twins, Kevin and Evan, the two hunkiest boys in the class, have entered the room. Kevin is already dating Eileen, but Evan is available and he wants to take Maggie to the formal dance, which she reluctantly accepts. Maggie has a reputation for not, following through on things, but Evan's okay with that. The time needs to be just right for those types of things. The two dance, as do Kevin and Eileen, and soon the big moment has come. Eileen transforms into a giant monster and devours Kevin in ritual sacrifice. Evan expects the same for Maggie, but she chickens out. It turns out that the cutting scars on her wrists are actually the removal of tendrils that grow out whenever she's aroused. Unfortunately, this just results in more detention.
The next story is a short one about how Cthulhu was awakened and summoned by the music of Gustav Mahler. That's it. After that, we follow a Sherlock Holmes-esque character as he's called to a mansion to find out what killed an elder god that somehow transferred through a portal. It turns out that the son of the mansion's ailing owner was trying to heal his mother via the power of dark magic. Unfortunately, his sister kept stooping the elder gods in order to cuckold her husband.
Meanwhile, private investigator Trent Johns is hired to locate a piece of art. The statue of Cthulhu, naturally, was commissioned to an artist who was recently murdered and the statue was stolen. Trent doesn't have to retrieve the statue, only a photograph will suffice. Trent tracks down the artist's sister, who, sure enough, has the statue. She claims the statue killed her brother by driving him insane and causing him to commit suicide. But before she can continue, the patrons of the statue arrive and kill her. Trent then smashes the statue, but it proves useless as they begin to move on to him.
The next story is about a drug addict who's been stealing from his girlfriend and thus driven her away. During his last attempt, he discovers a winged harness in her closet and uses it to fly into a giant black sun. Also, I'd like to point out that, I am aware that I'm reviewing some of these stories out of order. It's just I'm trying to avoid a big time crunch here by reviewing them in bunches.
In New Mexico, a marshal named Tom Deppy is pursuing an outlaw named Lubbock. He enters a cave believed to be full of ill-gotten gains. However, it turns out to be full of something else, Cthulhu. The being was resting and just wishes to be left alone and envelops Deppy. When the marshal comes to, Lubbock is waiting outside with Deppy's gun. After that, we have the story of an outcast named Damon. He feels alone in the world with only a poster of Cthulhu keeping him comfort. Even his girlfriend breaks up to him due to the constant mockery he receives at school. His parents don't provide much comfort, and eventually he journeys into his poster with only the ones who love him.
It's not actually the Cthulhu poster he goes into. It turns out he's also the guy from the Nelson After the Rain music video.
A group of youngsters break into an abandoned farm. The place is used by the police for staging crime scenes. However, the boys are shocked to find a real body in the trunk of one of the cars on the farm. The boys duck and cover as the sheriff arrives along with a crew looking for a doctor. Things get even darker when a monster pops up and begins chasing the boys out into a field. Thankfully, the cops manage to take down the creature with a barrage of bullets and bring the evil scientist in. They then admonish the boys.
What exactly any of this had to do with Cthulhu? I have no idea.
Good news for fans of the Maine Cheetahs baseball team. They're on the verge of winning their first World Series in 70 years, thanks to power hitter Emiliano Big Clutchy Zarate. A group of fans celebrate Big Clutchy by painting his nickname upon their chests. Unfortunately, while attempting to get lined up for the cameras, they wind up spelling a different name and summoning Cthulhu in the process.
Well, I guess it's still better than being a Mets fan.
Detective Dugan arrives at the home of serial killer Solomon King. Dugan has been pursuing King for years, trying to lock him away in prison, but it seems now the King has ended it, along with his own life. Still, Dugan can't quite believe the King is dead and decides to accompany the corpse to the autopsy. All of King's organs are gone, and in their place is a note for Dugan. It promises revenge if Solomon's King name is spoken. Of course, Dugan has just stupidly read this note aloud, and soon the corpse is shooting out tentacles which have engulfed the coroner. Dugan is soon grabbed and absorbed into the corpse, which then returns to life. From there, it's on to a post-Katrina New Orleans. A convict finds a book amongst the debris and takes it back to the Porto-John on a break. The book describes two lovers who were caught in the storm. One got swept out to sea, and the other was killed by none other than David Hedison.
That was a reference to the lead actor in the classic 1958 science fiction movie, The Fly.
As the convict continues reading the book, a mysterious fungus begins growing on his body. The last thing the convict sees is the prison guard changing form as he prepares for lunch.
The next story follows two college girls named Ellie and Dara, the latter of whom is into the occult but is rather disappointed in the campus Wiccan Society. The two girls wind up attending a Cthulhu-worshipping fraternity party where Ellie is turned into a vessel for the elder god. Dara pleads with Cthulhu to release her friend, but then changes her mind when he offers her unlimited power.
Phil and his brother Ken arrive at the family home to watch the big game. Ken is upset with the lack of alcohol in the home until he realizes that he's actually been led to an intervention. Ken tries to explain that he needs the booze, but his parents, siblings, and even his ex-girlfriend explain that they need him to just give it all up. But Ken says he needs the demon of alcohol to keep the other demon out. The family prepares to take him to a rehab facility when Ken suddenly starts convulsing. However, this is exactly what the family wanted as they arrive at a farm. They've been trying to summon Cthulhu through Ken, and the booze has always been in the way.
After a brief comic about Cthulhu cruise lines comes the tale of Phineas Flynn. Flynn was rejected by the woman he loved named Lorelei Lee and instead wound up trapped in a loveless marriage. To make ends meet, he would go around killing prostitutes at night because they reminded him of Lorelei. When the streetwalkers began to dry up, he eventually killed his wife and then Lorelei's husband. Somehow this made Lorelei fall in love with him and marry him. Then she ate him. In other words, this is how Gilmore Girls really should have ended.
A middle-aged woman wonders what exactly happened to her life. She used to be a nurse until she fell in with a biker named Mike who was on his way to California and attempting to summon Cthulhu through various killings along the way. Finally, the couple hit upon the idea of using a newborn baby to perform a proper summoning ritual. Using her nursing credentials to get a job at a hospital, the woman abducted a newborn girl. She soon started having second thoughts, though, and instead sacrificed Mike instead. It didn't really work. The woman homeschooled Sarah, and they kept doing sacrifices along the way, to little and little effect each time. Sarah's teen years then changed everything as she ran off with a boyfriend who got her pregnant and split. Realizing she now had a second chance to sacrifice a baby, this one named Michael, the mother prepared to make things right, except now Sarah is having second thoughts and sacrifices the mother instead.
That concludes our look at the Cthulhu Tales Omnibus Volume 1, Delirium. Now there is technically one more story in here, but it's really more of a preview for the second volume than it is anything else, so that's why I'm just going to skip over it. Anyway, what did I think of this book? Well, on the plus side, I do think a lot of the twists that are common in anthologies like this were handled pretty well. Not to mention the constant changing of artists wasn't jarring. I mean, it all flowed pretty well, pretty nicely, so it wasn't too unsettling most of the time. That being said, I do have some problems with this book. A lot of the humor stories just really kind of fall flat. They're really kind of just one-note jokes. I mean, the only ones that really worked well for me were the one about the Catholic schoolgirls who were devouring their boyfriends and the one about the baseball team. Other than that, the rest of them were just kind of blah. Just blah. And unfortunately, a lot of these stories were not written as one-shots. It looks like they're trying to set up for further tales, and that's not what you do in an anthology like this. You try to just tell the story and move on. If you want to lead to something, do that, but do it in a way that it still tells a complete story. This one just seems to leave things hanging on a hook all the time. And it just really bogs the pacing down. Not to mention, this thing is called Cthulhu Tales, but I was kind of disappointed by the lack of Cthulhu in this thing. I mean, like I said, it's Cthulhu Tales, not Elder Gods Tales or Cthulhu Mythos Tales. I think that would have worked a lot better than just Cthulhu Tales. So, yeah, this was kind of a disappointment for me. I mean, maybe if you were into Lovecraft, you'd like to see this and just see some different takes, but other than that, I've got to give the Cthulhu Tales Omnibus Volume 1 a D. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytime for Cat Productions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.